Welcome, everyone. This is Chris Jenke, Health in the Real World podcast. We're talking today to Ryan Nosak. Ryan, what's up? How's it going?
Hey Chris, what's going on, man? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah, we spoke last week, and I think this is going to be a great podcast. You share very similar expertise, athletic background. So Ryan is the founder of Ryno Strength based in northern Chicago. Spent what, 6 years as a D1 strength and conditioning coach across many different schools, right? Helping athletes achieve peak performance. And now your mission has kind of shifted a little bit. Today you help former athletes and everyday people feel like athletes again. You've walked the walk, having gone through your own weight loss journey, right? I'm going to talk about that too. I think that's very powerful because people want to know that we you know, felt the pain too. We've been there. And now you're helping people get strong, get lean, and confident for real life. So that's awesome. Anything else? What did I miss? Anything else?
Uh, that covers the main stuff, man.
Cool. Well, let's start with your story. I think people always want to hear this. What inspired your transformation, and then led you to working with elite athletes? How did you get started with all this?
Yeah, my story is deep and it goes back a long time, to be honest with you. When I was 5 years old, I lost my mom to cancer, and much like probably a lot of young kids, you find ways to try to cope with such a traumatic experience when you're really young. Growing up for me, I grew up outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania, a typical blue collar area. I became a fan of professional wrestling. I love video games. I love processed food. So that is a perfect recipe for being sedentary and eating a lot of junk. Uh, Before you knew it, I was known as the fattest kid in my school. And I pretty much went that way and from about 6 years old to about 13 years old. And I hated myself, man. I mean, I remember being 13 and looking at myself in the mirror and just all out hating the reflection that I saw. And it was the summer of my seventh grade year. I had my cousin, his name's Chris. Chris took me to the gym with him. And just like that, I immediately caught the iron bug. And I was definitely no superstar my first time at the gym. I mean, I was getting buried by just the bar, but I just loved the confidence that it gave me. And I got hooked, man. Um, Within a short time period from finishing up seventh grade to about the end of high school, I went from being that quote unquote fattest kid in the school to being known as the strongest kid in the school. And that completely changed my mindset, my perspective, my confidence that I had in myself. From an athletic perspective, I then became the captain of many teams, like the captain of my football team, the captain of a track and field team. And I started to develop leadership qualities. And I felt like a lot of the leadership qualities that I was fostering were because I'd go to the gym with my buddies and I'd be the one who'd be leading the workouts. We'd have a crew of my buddies after school, and I'd go in there and say, guys, we have this for chest today, we have this for legs. And it was really that experience throughout high school that I found that I liked teaching. I liked working with others, and I thought I was going to go to college to be a teacher. I didn't even know that something like a strength and conditioning coach existed. And one day when I was working at a gym, I found out that you can become a coach for athletes and teach them how to lift weights. And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I can be a teacher, which is what I'm passionate about, and I
Right.
could teach people how to lift weights, which is like essentially my favorite things. And I was able to sandwich them together. So in Pennsylvania, where I'm from, Penn State University is like the cream of the crop. It's a
Huge.
big deal.
Yeah.
Penn State had a great kinesiology program. That's where I knew I wanted to go. And I got into Penn State main campus. I went there, um, and I just started to just jump right in. The summer of my sophomore year, I started volunteering with the Penn State football team. And then throughout the rest of my time at Penn State, my junior year and senior year, I pretty much interned for every single sport that was there. Spent a lot of time with football. I had great mentors while I was there, and that really pushed me to want to become a college strength coach.
Yeah.
Following Penn State, I went on to work at six different Division I universities across the country. I pretty much moved everywhere, and as a strength coach, you're responsible for everything that the athlete's doing to get prepared for the sport, the lifting, the conditioning. You have a large role in nutrition, the recovery, And I just loved it because I had already immersed myself in that stuff since I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was me, like, at that point in time, putting all of that stuff that I was building all those years, and this is now my lab. Like, these college kids are like my lab of perfecting everything. And it was an awesome journey. I trained NBA athletes, I trained NFL, many other professional athletes, and it was a very meaningful job. Being a college strength coach brought me out to Chicago, where my last stop was at DePaul University. And DePaul was a great place to work. While I was there, I started doing some personal training on the side to save up money for an engagement ring for my wife that I had just met when I moved to Chicago. Personal training was a fun thing for me, but it was never going to be the thing.
Yeah.
COVID hit in 2020, and it was the first time in my life when I actually sat down and had time to myself. And I realized that I liked freedom. And I started to realize that I wanted to provide a different level of value to people. College athletes are specimens. They didn't really need me. They didn't need more people like myself.
Mhm.
But I'd often walk down the street or go to a party or wherever it might be, and I just would, hear conversations from people, and the questions that they were asking me were so basic in my mind, but this person was struggling and whatnot. And I just realized that there was such disparity between like what we know as like high level athletic coaches
Yeah.
versus what the common folk, knows when it comes to fitness, when it comes to health, nutrition. And in the middle of COVID, I decided to take a huge gamble on myself, and I left college athletics to run my own business. And I was extremely nervous to do it, but it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Now I'm 5 years into running my own business, Ryno Strength. And what's really unique about it is that I help people of all backgrounds with in-person training. My youngest kid has been 7 years old. My oldest person has been 81 years old. And it's
Yeah.
so cool to have such a large gap in making a difference in somebody's life. I also help people online, and what I've done online is really zeroed in on the ex-athletes. So um, I was finding that a lot of athletes were graduating college, and maybe I had trained them in college, and they were reaching out to me a couple years later, and they'd say, "Coach, I've gained 30 pounds since I've graduated. I
Damn.
still work out, but I'm just not. I'm not seeing any weight loss. I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me?" And I kept getting those stories over and over again. I said, "Man, this is it. This is what I'm going to do."
Yeah.
And I created my main offer now is a 12-week transformation program, and that's really meant to jumpstart somebody's habits into feeling like an athlete again. We cover everything from personalized training, personalized nutrition, but most importantly, making it fit their current lifestyle and schedule in their life. You can go and get a lot of this stuff off the web, and of course, with AI now, yeah, it's kind of everywhere. But the thing is, it doesn't take into account that you want to go out and get beers with your buddies on Wednesday night. And it
Yeah.
doesn't take into account that you're going to go out for a date night every Friday with your wife. Well, if you want to lose weight, we have to account for those things in the plan. And that's where I come in. I'm able to look at this stuff big picture and kind of put together a plan for that person to follow. So that's these are the things that really drive me in my life now.
Yeah.
Um, I'm married. I have two daughters. I just had my second child. She's
Congrats,
3 months old.
congratulations.
So I'm a busy man, but
Yeah.
it's really important for me to keep giving back.
Well, that's cool, man. So a couple things I want to take out of that. One, you did it yourself, and I think this is something that people who haven't gone through this journey where you were known as the biggest kid in your school up until 13, and then you had a few years where you became the strongest kid. What is interesting is I think a lot of people who haven't been through that journey, they don't realize like when you go in the weight room, you're doing cardio, you're doing all the workouts. It's one thing. You're not necessarily thinking about how it's going to feel. You don't even know how it's going to feel to all of a sudden be called the strongest kid in school. What an incredible turnaround, right? In just a few short years. But it wasn't like that was what you're thinking about. Oh, they're going to call me the strongest kid in school. You just went to work. You just like, I'm going to lift these weights week after week. I'm going to try to lift heavier. I'm going to do some cardio, yada, yada, whatever your program was. And I think it's so cool that you took your transformation that you went through middle school, high school, and you're still doing it. I don't know how many, decades later,
Yeah.
and it's just incredible. Now, my question is, you have these two people, right? So one thing you mentioned is you're talking about people, let's say at a birthday party, and I agree with you. I've experienced this. The average or like the common level of knowledge is so incredibly low. You don't have people asking you about like, hey, how do I optimize my macros and this and that? They're asking questions like, is it true that Twinkies are actually bad for you? And stuff like that, right? And you're like, whoa, we got a long way to go. But then you have this other group of people who you've honed in on, who seem to be contacting you, right? The ex-athlete. Like you said, athletes are specimens, man. I was around a lot of athletes when I was in college and I was helping with the team and stuff, the basketball team. These guys are on a different level. Like they could eat nachos all day and still be dunking a basketball with their elbow in the rim, and
Yep.
still have an eight pack, right? At least when they're
Yes.
young. But now fast forward, they're 25, they're 30 years old, they start to get a little bit flabby and soft and they want to do something. So I would imagine those people are pretty fun to train because they have this memory of being at this level and they have the muscle mass. I'm sure it's still there. How cool is that? Like, what is your protocol for working with those types of individuals to get them back on the wagon?
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot of fun. A lot of them typically want to push weight. They want to be pushed. We'll do some crazy protocols sometimes that like I would never ever do with like any other clients. But they have that dog in them, so to speak. Um, and it's kind of just for me getting to know what their main goals are. So like typically the guys want to, they want to hit more muscle mass and they want to like hit hypertrophy work. So it's more of like a bodybuilding split. I
Yeah.
often maybe do like upper lower splits with them, and maybe 4 times a week we're hitting the gym, and I'll throw like different intensity techniques in their program. So like you might have like a meat and potatoes exercise first, like a squat, a deadlift, or like a bench, something in that variation. And there's like an accessory movement after that. And something maybe the next two exercises we're going to use something like a drop set, or we're going to use like a rest pause technique, or we're going to do something off eccentric or isometric work where we're slowing the movement down or adding pauses in. So now we're kind of varying these other things within the program to make it feel different so that you're not just lifting a weight from point A to point B. You're now messing with like rep speed and pushing yourself to failure. And then it becomes like that mental side of things where, okay, I had a drop set last week and I did 18 reps on it. Well, today I got to get 19 or, I'm a failure. And like that ex-athlete loves being
They get
pushed.
competitive,
They
right?
get
Yeah.
competitive.
Yeah.
And I want to make them competitive against themselves because that's what I really want to like drive. I want to drive that back in. Um, and a lot of them I find from nutrition, no, like they've had education,
Yeah.
but it's more so sometimes people just they're eating healthy, but they don't realize that you can still eat healthy and it can still be too many calories.
Yeah.
So
Right.
then a lot of my education is, all right, I look at their current structure of their plan and we go through breakfast, we go through lunch, we go through dinner, we go through all the snacks, any beverages, anything like that.
Right.
And I try to get an idea of where their calories are at for the day. And I say, hey, these things are good, but I think you're overdoing it on the portions here.
Yeah.
Let's make this swap for your breakfast. Often I'm seeing them not eat enough protein,
Yeah.
not enough fiber, likely because they're not having enough fruits or vegetables. Um, Sometimes they're okay on water, but we usually have to go in and make those changes. So, like on paper, the first nutritional intervention seems simple,
Yeah.
but they just don't realize like how big of an effect those things can have on changing body composition and then changing your appetite from day to day.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good thing that you hit on. Like how they don't realize how big of an effect that has because honestly, you can probably that birthday party person that you just meet, you could give them five things to do for the next year. And if they did those consistently, transformation, right? Like what would you say the five? Okay, so eat enough protein. So we're talking like zero point 0.8 to 1.0 grams per pound of body weight.
Yeah,
You mentioned fruits and vegetables. I think we got to throw that in there. You put the water in top five, probably. Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I put water in there. I usually say half your body weight in ounces.
After body weight in ounces. And then, of course, just like a mild caloric deficit, 300 to like 800 maybe a day,
Yeah.
maybe 6 days a week. And then that seventh day, maybe a maintenance day. And do that for a year, and you're going to have a six pack at the end of the year, right? Would you say?
Right. And I usually ask them about like their steps, just because like if they are a desk worker, they might only be getting like 3,000, 4,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, if we can add if we can add more steps, it's not going to seem like a lot day to day. But even if we're just doing an extra 100 calories or 200 calories or some steps, at the end of a week, if that's 200 calories, that's now 1,400 calories that you're going to start noticing that. And at the end of a month, you're going to start noticing that as well. And then also, if you're getting outside, you're getting more sunlight, you're probably going to feel better as well. So there's like a lot of positives from like the mental side of that too. Because I find a lot of them are just inside underneath artificial light all day and not moving. And you're going to feel like garbage if that's how you're living your life every single day.
And then if you're out on that walk, take that time to call an old friend that you haven't seen since college and, reconnect. And then now you're growing your social circle back up and there's all kinds of stuff you can do. Yeah. I
Right,
think
right.
I think that's the key. Like I think it's cool. Like you're sort of walking both these. I know you train people who have probably never been athletes, unless that 81-year-old was like, yeah, I was in the 66 Olympic Games and I don't even know if there was an Olympics in 66. I think 68 maybe. Um, but it's really the same, right? It's just the athletes are at such another level. And even the 30, 35-year-old has that memory of when they were young. So, quick story, like after I graduated college, I had like the freshman 20 that carried over through senior year. So I had some weight to lose, but I wanted to try out for a basketball team, like a semi-pro team. So I hired a trainer for 18 months. This is crazy though. This is what I think people don't realize. And I see a lot of ex-athletes getting really big. After I trained for the day, so I did an hour of weights every day. I did at least an hour and a half of ball handling drills, and then I would play, pickup games and hone my skills. So I was probably in the gym for like 3, 4 hours a day. And I got home and I would eat a pound of pasta. I was 22, 23 years old, a pound of pasta and some chicken or something. And when I like calculate the macros now, it's like I think I was eating 4 or 5 thousand calories a day and I was shredded, right? Now I've been wearing this guy for a few weeks and it's telling me I'm only burning about 1,800 to 2,300 a day as a 45.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
6'1". So it's amazing how easy it is to overeat when you only have 2,000-ish calories. And this is why I tell people you honed in on it. Your shopping list looks great. You're getting some good meats, you're getting a lot of vegetables, you're getting blah blah blah, all this stuff, but you're overeating by like 300 calories a day. You're not going to lose any,
Yes,
right?
yes.
How hard is it to cram that message home and to like do you have to like force people like you need to track your calories, dude, come on. How are you? Do you sometimes get in a little headbutt matches with people, or how do you tell people that how important this actually is?
Yeah, that's sometimes I think where a lot of the resistance comes because somebody might say to me the first time we meet, I'm not going to track my food. And I'm like, all right,
You're not
this can be
gonna.
harder. Um, Now, recently, like I think I think when I start people, somebody can see a large amount of change just from habit change. Where like if we're going to primarily do like the precision nutrition recommendations, if we do like a protein the size of your fist, we fill up the majority of your plate with vegetables, maybe a quarter of the plate with like a starchy carb. If we take those habits over, I think that that person can start seeing a lot of results just from there. Um, if that person is doing a lot of liquid calories and we dial back to have not having any liquid calories, that's a pretty huge change there. If that person has kids, I'll say, when your kids are done with their meal, are you eating the rest of their meal? Oftentimes the answer is yes. Okay, well, we're not going to eat the rest of their meal anymore because even though those calories don't seem like they count, they still count. Um, a lot of people that I work with, they kind of run like a fasting approach where because that's what they've heard is going to work really well for them.
Yeah.
But throughout the day, they're or whenever their fasting window starts to eat, the eating window starts, they go to their kitchen, they go to their pantry, and It's like, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, popcorn, ooh, tortilla chips, ooh, this. And they're dipping into all these different places. And I'm like, okay, like at the end of this day, it didn't seem like those things added up, but like each time you're taking a handful, especially like a handful of nuts, they don't, nuts are like, let's say they're healthy, but they're very calorically dense.
Sure, yeah,
Before you know it, you just had like 400 calories of nuts.
yeah,
So I really try to attack it from like a habit change first.
yeah.
I think the benefit of tracking food and tracking calories is that ultimately it gives you more flexibility. Like if you want to have your bowl of cereal, we can have your bowl of cereal, but we just got to make it fit the plan. And I still want to make sure that you're having, 80 to 85% of your other food is going to be from whole nutrient dense food sources.
Yeah,
But if having that bowl of cereal or having chocolate or having that dessert helps keep you on plan, and as long as we build that into the plan, I'm totally cool with it.
yeah.
But we just have to make sure that it's accounted for.
Exactly. I think that's fantastic. I think that's good news for anybody who's trying to get lean and needs to have at least a slight watchful eye on their calories, or like you said, the habits approach. Have your ice cream, have your pizza. What do you like eating? And it's not like a binge free for all cheat day. It's like all right, well, check it out. Like you ate some potatoes today, but other than that, you have like 50 grams of carbs available and plenty of calories. Go for it. Like
Yeah.
have like your kids mac and cheese or whatever you want. Have you found in general with either yourself, your athletes, uh, when you eat more protein in general, you just are not like a craving bingy, you're not wanting to eat everything under the sun. Things kind of start to regulate a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's been a big factor in like my own personal success over the years is just really focusing on protein. Like if nothing else works for me, I'm still gonna hit my protein goal because I know that like that keeps me within the guardrails, so to speak, without veering off the road too far. And a lot of clients when they start with me, they are so surprised. Like if I had a dime for every time somebody told me that eating protein makes them feel full, I'd have a lot of dimes because it happens over and over and over
Yeah,
again.
yeah, $1
Um,
million dollars.
uh-huh. But exactly. But I think they're just so surprised that like protein is just so satiating. It's going to require typically more chewing.
Yeah,
All the amino acids that you're getting from it, it's literally the building blocks of your muscle. Then the different amino acid profiles, they can have a different effect on your neurotransmitters as well. So now if you really get into into the cellular aspect of it, it can have a different effect on your mental health and your mood and how you're feeling. If
yeah,
you're having like a protein combined with the fat, it's and it's converted to I believe it's converted to tyrosine. That has an effect on dopamine,
it's
and
beautiful.
that's
So good.
amazing.
In the stomach, oh, it's the best.
And then you feel really good after that meal versus let's say you've had yeah, let's just say you've had a processed food. Let's just say you had a bagel and nothing else with it, and you might feel good for a little bit after, but then you kind of get that crash. Um,
You're so
Maybe there's
hungry.
like
So
hungry,
excited.
feelings of like depression or like lethargy, right? Like things like that can be brought on by the food that you're eating too. Um, so I really think that from like a habit perspective, just getting more protein is a keystone habit that can have an impact. We can spit out in all these different directions of the impact it's having on all these different systems in the body.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, I would put that for, yeah, more protein, more vegetables. When I'm coaching people, I try to start with the habit perspective, and my whole program is like, I guarantee you'll lose 10 pounds in 90 days if you follow these things. And if they don't, I'll just keep coaching them until they lose it,
Yeah.
the 10 pounds, because adding protein is so effective. And people say how hard it is, but after a few weeks, they're like, oh, yeah, that wasn't that hard. Adding protein, the water, the veggies. Um, and I do agree with you. Like if you just have your plate and you say like a quarter of the plate is protein, you have a tiny little carb, and then the rest is, vegetables, and go ahead and throw a piece of fruit on there. Uh,
It-
generally it will take care of itself at that point. So, um,
right. Right.
absolutely, you're having some lighting
Yeah.
issues. No worries. Um, So yeah, that's cool. So Ryan, tell us, give us a big picture summary, and this you can start this whatever direction you like. But I like to say, let's just say a university that you just worked at, in the past, invites you, and you're the keynote speaker at their graduation. Um, give your keynote speech. It can incorporate health and wellness into it, or bigger, broader life advice that you have for these recent graduates. And then, so go ahead and give that speech to them. And then right after that, tell us how we can find you, what programs you have, how somebody can get started with you after that speech.
Yeah. I think some of the biggest things is program consistency in following a plan is ultimately what dictates success. And I'm going to say out some very cliche things here. The best diet is the one you'll follow. Find something you love doing and stick to it. So like let's take both of those things from a nutrition standpoint and from an activity standpoint. When it comes to nutrition, if your nutrition is too complex, if it's not realistic for your life, you're not going to do it. No matter what the experts tell you, it has to fit your life. I like things that come from the earth. If it grows in the earth, if it swims in the sea, if it flies in the air, if it grows on a tree, I'm probably going to be eating it. If it's going to be sitting on a grocery store shelf for 18 months and it's not going to expire, I just think about the effect that that has on the inside of my body. It doesn't mean that I'm never going to eat those things. I'm just very wary of that. I think processed foods can serve a role in our environment, especially in various countries and circumstances. But we have to be wary that those things can really wreak havoc in our modern day brain, right? We're not really meant to evolve and have food available like we do today. You can sit on your couch, you can pull up Uber Eats, and you can just lift a finger and you can have food from all over any cuisine delivered to you. So just be very cautious of that. We live in an obesogenic environment surrounded by food all day long. And I think you have to have some sort of cognitive oversight where you think about the food that you're eating, how it's being manufactured, your portion, if you're really going to manage your weight in today's environment. I think from an activity standpoint, the best activity is the one that you'll keep doing. I'm always a big fan of resistance training just because we lose 3 to 5% of muscle mass per decade after the age of 30 if we're not doing any sort of resistance training. So resistance training is always number one in my book. I'm very partial to weight training, as we talked about. However, if somebody can get that resistance training through Pilates or something where it is going to be doing some sort of resistance, I'm all for it. Stick with it. It's not something where you can do it one time and the results are going to stick with you for the next 90 days. It's got to be an ongoing habit, just like brushing your teeth, just like taking a shower, right? It's not like you can do either one of those things and they stick with you. The world of activity, the world of training, it's got to be done the same way. Lastly, I think that people will stick to this stuff more if you have two circumstances. One, find a buddy or find a friend that you can do it with. I think that makes the journey that much more special. Then you're also creating a social aspect from it as well. Number two, find a deeper reason why you want to do it. It doesn't always have to be aesthetic. We always associate working out, exercising, whatever, to look better, to burn fat. It doesn't have to be that reason. Maybe you want to live longer so you could play with your grandkids. Maybe you want to live longer, or maybe you want to add more years to your life so you're a better pickleball player at the local pickleball tournament. Whatever it is, I would challenge you to sit down and think about your why, because when you really have that why, you're going to be more motivated and ultimately you'll develop discipline to stick with this over the course of the long term. And that's really what it's all about.
Awesome. Love it. Ryan, how can people get in touch with you? Website, social media, etc.
My website is rynostrength.com. I am most active on Instagram. My tag is Ryan.Nosak, Nosak. I also am on Threads. I'm on Facebook. I recently created a TikTok. I don't really know what I'm doing. Just trying to figure it out, but I'm trying to be active on all the socials.
Nice. How do you spell Rhino Strength? Is that R Y?
Rynostren.
Okay.
GTH.
Oh, I know. Cool. All right, Ryan Nosak. Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate you joining in. Appreciate your insights, and thanks for joining Health in the Real World podcast. You're invited back anytime. And hope you guys watching enjoyed that conversation with Ryan.